What's up, guys? Today we will be putting a leveling kit on this brand new Titan crew cab, short bed, factory wheels and tires, 4x4. Also, we will be putting on some step bars. Give you all a little before and after view, so I can see what the truck looks like before the leveling kit and what all it does. And let's get to it. First step is to get the truck in the air. I've already done it. I'll show you. Right there. It goes in the front, in the rear, back there. Now make sure you don't hit the muffler or the fuel tank on the other side. Then, when you got your puck set, lift the truck up. You're going to need to put this leveling kit on a Nissan Titan 2017 non-XD. You're going to need a 19mm socket and wrench. We got the impact socket and the regular socket just in case. 13/16 socket. You need a 22mm socket, which I got the impact, so I know that's a big bolt. We got the hammer, any kind of hammer, anything just to hit something, say breaking the ball joint from the knuckle. 17mm wrench, 14mm socket. I got it in the impact as well. And then 9/16 socket, and I just got a 14mm wrench because I know it's going to need it. First step is to remove this bolt right here, which is connected to the steering linkage. And as you can see, there is a cotter pin. Let's see if I can get it to focus here. There's a cotter. The first step is the steering linkage. You're going to want to take this top bolt out. I went ahead and lubricated it with some Seafoam multi-use penetrating lubricant. Just because it looks a little rusty. There's a cotter pin, so I'm going to have to remove the cotter pin. And while you're here, you might just want to go ahead and spray down the bolts that you know you're going to use.
Top of the strut bolts, top of the ball joint, just to get everything loose. Get the bottom, take off that. Just read your instructions when you're starting off.
Next step, what you're going to do is the cotter pin, I don't know if you can see it, it's kind of rounded right here. So you need to bend it straight and then push it out. So I'm going to do that right now.
Bend it straight. One by one's a lot easier than getting both of them. But if you can get both of them, go ahead.
And there it is. So you put everything, make sure you know where everything goes. Got a little tray right here. And then once that cotter pin's out, now you can remove this bolt. So the bolt is a 22mm socket. What you're going to do after removing the cotter pin, put the socket on the bolt and loosen it up. Then once it's completely off, the nut sometimes gets in there. It's going to be hot, don't touch it. Now the steering linkage is going to be somewhat loose. What you want to do to finish it, just like any other ball joint or lower ball joint, so you're either going to want to hit right here or hit right here, but I don't suggest here because you can mess up the threads if you hit it on top, unless you're super careful. Usually there's a spot on this knuckle. Don't hit the steering linkage, hit the knuckle, which is connected to the whole thing. Hit the knuckle right here a couple times with the hammer and it should pop down. And I'll go ahead and show you that process right now. Alright, so once you get your hammer, like I said, you're going to want to hit right there. Saw it, it just popped down a little bit, and then you can just release it with your hand. Don't be afraid to hit it hard, because this, I mean, it's, you can see it's tough. Nothing's going to happen to it, and you got to do it. I mean, there's no really other way to do it, in my opinion. But once that's loose, then we'll go on to the next step. This little sway bar link, what you're going to want to do, you're going to put a 17mm on the back side, and I think this is a 21mm wrench on the side next to the little boot right here. All right, so the next step is we're going to remove the bolts on top of the strut. These are 14 millimeter bolts. So I believe there is 3. I don't know if you can see it. There's 1 back here and 2 right here. So what you're going to do is just loosen those up. And we'll be back to the next step. So once you get done with that, leave 1 bolt on just so something on the top can hold the strut so it doesn't fall. So loosen everything and then loosen this one and put it back maybe 2 turns just to get a little stabilization so when we take that bottom strut bolt down. Next step is the upper ball joint. So on the upper ball joint, you see we are dealing with another cotter pin. So what we're going to do is we're going to straighten the cotter pin out, and then we're going to put our little needle nose pliers in here and push it out. Once the cotter pin comes out, then you can take your impact or your socket and ratchet and loosen this bolt. This bolt, I believe, is a 21. And then when you loosen that bolt, what you're going to do again is you're going to hit right here or here or on the back side, whichever one you feel comfortable with. You're going to hit it with a hammer so that way it breaks the ball joint from the control arm. So we're going to do that and we'll get back with you on the next step. Alright, so once you get the knuckle out from the control arm, take the cotter pin out like I said, and then it's 22 millimeter bolt nut on the bottom of the control arm. So once you get that loose, hit it with the hammer a couple times as I've shown in the time lapse you just watched, and easily let it over here. So next step is going to be this bolt right here. So you want to hold the bolt right here with a wrench, and then on this side, if you got a ratcheting wrench. If you don't, then put a wrench on this side and then you can use your impact on this side. Now I'm going to get the tools and we're going to remove that bolt. Here's the time lapse. Is I like to do this, put my thumb right here and lift up on the spring and hold it right there while I loosen this nut. I'm going to go ahead and show you that. So loosen this nut, and once it's loose, you see the strut come completely out. And I'm going to show you how to install the lift spacer. Be back. So I had to skip showing you how to put it on, but all you do, this is the spacer that goes on top of the strut here. It's simple. It's going to come just like this. Undo the bolts. Pretty much stand it up and slide it on there. I had to use a hammer just a little bit just to get it nice and square, and then tighten the bolts down and you're good to go. And then pretty much we're going to right here, after this step, we're going to take this strut and we're going to proceed to put it back in the vehicle. All right, now that we've got the strut back in the vehicle, it's pretty easy. What you're gonna have to do is so this strut, before the spacer, it came out that side out. So pretty much when you put the spacer on there, you're gonna be flipping it and it goes right back in there. You're gonna take your factory bolts, strut bolts at the top. You're gonna line your bolt holes up, lift the strut up so the bolts come through the holes, and pretty much get one of those bolts started. That way you don't have to hold it the whole time. But once you get those bolts started, what I'm going to do is put this strut bolt back in. If you're doing this on the ground, you'd have jack and jack stands, but if you're doing it on the lift, I'm gonna raise the lift up a little bit and I'm gonna put a jack stand, a really tall one, on the bottom of this. That way I can jack it up and it lifts this bottom control arm back into the strut. So once you got those hand tight, don't tighten them fully, get them hand tight, and then what we're going to do is put the bottom strut bolt back in and then repeat the process of taking everything off, put it right back on. So we got the bottom bolt in the strut. Now what we're going to do is we're going to tighten up the strut assembly, and then once that's done, we're going to put the control arm back on the knuckle, top ball joint, put all the sway bar and steering controls back on, and then this side's going to be done. And I'm going to actually do a time lapse so y'all can see the process. So here you go. And then once that's done, we're going to put the control arm back on the knuckle, top ball joint, put all the sway bar and steering controls back on, and then this side's gonna be done. And I'm gonna actually do a time lapse so y'all can see the process. So here you go. This side is done. You can see the spacer up there. Everything's back on. Cotter pins are in. Make sure everything's tight after you get everything else done. Now that that side's done, now we move on to the passenger side. I'm not going to explain how to do this side like I did the last side. What I'm going to do for y'all is put a time lapse on so y'all can see the whole process. Appreciate it. Guys, so the leveling kit is on and she is level. 2017 Nissan Titan V8 non-XD. It's a 2-inch leveling kit. Came out wonderful. Great. No more nosedive, rake in the front. Looks awesome.